Hey guys, welcome back to the Interceptor. We are here with War 2 of this season, and something unfortunate happened in my first fights, my first 3 fights where they just didn't record. I had started the recording, and I got a recording failed message. So I'm just going to talk about what happened in these fights, and I'm just scouting the map for you guys, and then I will go show it. So I'm going to go back until I was right over the fights. So let me pause it. So I was on path 1, section 1. My team is Dr. Doom, Spidey 2099, and White Magneto. So against that Vision Aarkus, I had a special 1 boost on, and I went to L3. The L3 almost killed, and then and then since I was stealing all the power gain buffs, by the end of my hits during the passive stun, I was at another L3. That second L3 killed. I went up against Dormammu. Now for that fight, I did turn on 3 out of 3 Despair, and by the time I got 3-4 debuffs on him, he was barely healing from the masochism. He was dead in under a minute. 2 L2s to kill him, and I also used a White Magneto pre-fight there. And then I had this Manthing on node 20. Now the guy on path 2 had White Magneto. He placed a White Mags for me on it, and I went in with Dr. Doom. Now this fight is Man-Thing is pretty much always on this node, and in my opinion, Dr. Doom is the safest counter. However, the way that you have to play the fight has changed since last season. And when I was looking at the numbers of a R4 Dr. Doom versus a rank 3 Man-Thing, if you just stick to using L1 and L2 the entire fight, you will actually outdamage the masochism. So you cannot really worry about that. It may be a little long, but Man-Thing will never throw a special if you play it correctly. And I said this. I said this in one of the chats. I said, okay, I'm about to take this fight. I think that what I should do is alternate between L1 and L2 only. It's not worth the risk from the L3. Because if you don't know, the global activates on nullify. So if Man-Thing were to nullify one of my Furies, he would activate his miss. And people said no. People said they think it would be better if I went for an L3. So then we were talking about what I should do is once I get to my L3, I should use power back boost so that I can throw my special 1 as early as possible and minimize the chances of myself getting nullified from contact. Because if you don't know the way Man-Thing works, he has between a 0% and a 15% chance to nullify any buffs on contact, depending on his current agitation. And obviously Man-Thing had not thrown any specials, and I'd thrown at that point only an L3. So yeah, Man-Thing was at 50% by the end of my L3 because it was my second L3. So my first L3, I decided to just back off and do really slow combos. And then on my second one, I decided I was going to go for an L2 immediately after. So I threw my L3. I know how long the passive stun is from his L3. So I waited to check if my Mystic Boost had got me back to an L1, and they didn't. They got me back to about 0.9 bars of power. So what I did 1 medium, which was enough to get me my L1, and then I threw my L1. But the thing is, that 1 medium attack got my Fury nullified, which activated the miss. So my L1 didn't power drain because only the beam hits at the end of it connected on Man-Thing. What does that mean? It means no power drain. So Man-Thing was at an L1. Now at this point, I had an invuln on for this fight, but I hadn't taken a single hit. I was at 100% health. Literally 100%. Not a full yellow bar because I'd parried a few times. And I had a white Magneto pre-fight, obviously, so I didn't have to reparry. But I was at 100%. Now, obviously, the L3 itself doesn't do any damage, but the L3 puts poisons on you. And with 0 Furies from the Fury build-up node, 0. I'd played it perfectly. He had 0 Furies. 1 L3, just the poisons, killed a rank 4 boosted Doctor Doom from 100% health. And I was dead. Now, before it killed me, because it did take like 15 to 20 seconds for the poison to kill me, but I knew I was going to die, I had to like try to rush, and I threw another L2. And I actually ended up getting him down to 10% health. So if I'd gotten one more L2, he would have been dead. But I couldn't get to my L2 fast enough. I was hitting him the entire time. I still didn't let him throw a single special attack. I was just beating up on him, trying to get there as fast as possible. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen. I didn't get to that second L2. And I died. One contact. One hit. The only hit in the entire fight. Not a single other hit if I'd been nullified in. No. That was the only one I had a chance to get nullified in. I did one hit the entire fight when I had a buff on me. One. And it nullified. Now, if I'm to retake that fight, I am going to be alternating L1 and L2 the entire fight, abusing Mystic Dispersion, and I'm going to make it a long fight, because we discussed the fight, and I pretty much played it exactly how I should have. And I got absolutely screwed by bad luck. So, now we'll get into the rest of my fights. I'm going to be joining here, but I'll just skip the joining process. I'm just scouting the rest of the map. They put a Spider-Ham boss, which I thought was really interesting, and we ended up using Mole Man, and the guy ended with like 65% health, so I assume it went pretty well. But yeah, I'm just skipping through this myself, joining. Like I said, Section 1 didn't record. So here's Section 2. I was not clear when I went to bed. I was still waiting on 2 more fights to go down, which was Strife on 47 and Kitty Pride on 48. I had to wait for those 2 fights to go down so I could finish my war. So I did revive Doctor Doom, obviously, with one of the 40% revives, and then I just used 2 of the small... I used one 14.5k potion, one 9k potion, so not really the small ones, but 2... I used... so far, I've used 2 of those loyalty potions in 2 wars, so I'm pretty happy with that. I was considering here using either Mystic or Science Boost, and I realized they just like literally did not matter whatsoever, and it was just be me pissing away loyalty. So this is actually Path 8, Section 2, and one of the nodes on this gives you a armor up buff every time you parry. Now what that means for Spidey 2099 is that it pauses his personal debuffs. So you never have to worry about dexing. You just never have to do it in this fight. So you can just hit into him as long as you parry once in a while, you're going to keep up your debuffs. Now this also does have Rich Get Richer for power gain for buffs. But he actually dies there because my L2 plus my exhausts, my exhaustions were actually enough to make the power gain get reversed and put him back to 0, which technically counts as hitting a bar of power. So the ruptures burst and kill him. The second fight is going to be Silver Surfer. This is obviously a rank 4 Silver Surfer because pretty much everyone has a rank 4 Silver Surfer in this alliance. I'm pretty sure like literally every single member does, because they are either first or second in prestige. And yeah, they're just a bunch of whales. Not saying they're like bad at the game for that reason, but they are a bunch of whales. And we throw 1L3, and it does really good damage here. It's pretty much going to kill him. But I am going to actually cycle back. I'm going to do a few hits, cycle back to my L1, and then an L2, and the L2 is actually going to kill him. So really clean fight. Really nothing to worry about. I do love that they took away the heal block from this path, so you can now use suicides if you want to, but it just didn't really line up with the champions I'm using. And then I have one more fight this war, and this one actually does get a little bit sketchy because Sersi is a little bitch. But luckily, Ken actually did take the boss linked, which means that these fights are not going to have the global on them. I don't know if Sersi would have the global anyways, but here I was just checking my invul and it had 30 seconds left, so I was like, okay, I'll go in. We did actually have someone else place a white Magneto pre-fight on here. I was actually scheduled to use my own, so what I did is I'm just going to use that later. And I didn't record, well, I technically recorded, but it didn't save, where I used my second white Magneto pre-fight, and that was on Sasquatch on 26. That Vern was taking. So my strategy for this was to just keep her power drained, keep staggering her glancing buff, and then just like throw a special in between. Now in hindsight, this is where I made a small mistake. What I should have done here is I should have thrown this L1, and then I should have just parried. But instead, what I did is I was making an attempt to re-parry, but unfortunately she hit into my block and then threw a heavy. The reason I was doing this is because I didn't want her to throw an L1. In hindsight, she could have thrown an L1. I mean, I could have just evaded it. It's not very hard to evade. But she is actually going to glance, and I do 3 light attacks. Now, normally you would start the Doom cycle with a medium, but because of the glancing, I wasn't sure if the ability accuracy on my SP3 would fail my passive stun, so I wanted... I know that regardless of whether or not it stuns, it makes you super close, which is why I started with a light attack, because I just wanted to see if I wasn't stunned, if I could still get the opening here, and then right here I'm going to kill her. So luckily I am able to eat that L3 because of my invuln. It does inflict an incinerate on me, but it's a really weak incinerate. And then I'm going to throw on a white Magneto pre-fight here on this Mangog, but I'm not taking it. One of our guys cleaned this up with magic, which was pretty sweet. But yeah, that's actually the end of my war for today. So we sucked this war. Myself and just our alliance did not have a good time. My battle group 2 died 2 times, or oh my god, not 2 times, 5 times. We died 5 times, and the alliance died 10 times, which I think is more than any other time that we died, like all of last season. I don't think we had a single war that was in the double digits. I think the season before we did, but this is just absolutely pathetic. If we were up against a Masters level alliance, that this is just not going to why also have a good war in 30 15 times. They still have 15 fights left. I assume they're going to die 2, 3, 4 more times. I don't know. But they actually have like an entire mini boss island left. So it is possible that they die a few more times. But we definitely won, which is going to make us 2-0 on the season. Now, unfortunately for me, that comes with my first death of the season, regardless of how unfair it was. It is definitely a preventable mistake. It's the type of thing that seems so unlikely that you kind of just try to ignore it somewhat. And I think that was just a mistake. I think you just need to cycle L1, L2 the entire fight and just suck it up with all the healing, and it's going to take a long time, but that's the safe way to do it. And yeah, 1 death on the season for me. My PSR is at 12 out of 13, 6 fights this war, 7 last war, which is 92.3% solo rate. My deathless streak is at a whopping 3 fights. So yeah, that is actually going to be all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will actually see you all in the next video. Bye.